There's my sweet girl. There's Evie. You's a sweet girl. Yeah, you's a good girl. You's my good girl. You so good. We love you so much. We do. So, now that I've got the hacksaw shaft installed, the question is going to be is if these BMW speed sensors can be used. So my next goal is to find a way to get, so maybe if I put some angle iron and it's like right there, to read the tone ring. So that's probably what I'm looking at doing right there, is like exactly that. Trying to fabricate up a little bracket that'll go up and it'll have to make a little 90. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'll probably take this little toe link. So this is like a toe link support. Since this is cast aluminum, these are prone to breaking under heavy track use or cracking. So this is like a steel reinforcement, which is great because it's steel. So I could grind this and I could weld a little tab right there in order to tighten a bolt. So this is probably going to go real, like, I am excited about this. This may work out way easier than I shouldn't say that. It should work out. I shouldn't say easier, but it should work out. Said need it to be like 1 3/4 inches overall, so mark that. Probably cut it a little long just to be safe. Then we'll grind this piece and then we'll weld it. And then we will weld. I lost it there. one of the most important things I've learned when welding is remember your orientation, which is that this flat part of the cone is up. So that's one thing I will be really, really sure about. So that is the orientation that I want. This. Y'all, I apologize. That was one of the worst performances I've ever had since I first started welding. I'm not a good welder by any means, but man, that was atrocious. I had to come in and clean some of this up. That was terrible. Probably should have drilled a hole in it beforehand, but man, it's pretty hot. Okay, so what I'll do next, I'll let that cool down. I'll probably clean some of it up, and then I'll drill a hole, and we can mock out where that speed sensor needs to be. But first, hopefully this piece has cooled. Yeah, it's cool. So, yeah, I know, I suck at welding. Shut up. But I hope YouTube doesn't take this video down because there's music playing. Let me see if I can turn it down. All right. They've given me crap about having music on in the past, so. All right, so what I do is, this is a little hard to do one-handed, but you get the idea. So I'll thread that in. Give me 1 second. Okay, so now an old me would have just held it on there instead of tightening these bolts down, and they're finger tight. They're not like tight. But you want everything the way it should be as it's going to run on the car, because then that's when you get surprised by the lack of tolerances. So, all right, so this is exactly where I want it. It's like in line, pointing right at the tone ring. You see what I mean? Like, it is pointed right at it. And then what I can do is I can drill a hole and shim it out on this side. I can put shims on the left side of the bracket to shim this thing close to the tone ring. So what I'll do is I'll mark this spot with a Sharpie. I'll go over, drill a hole, and then I can mount it with a bolt and then add shims on the left side of the bracket to get it within spec for that for the ABS, the Mk60 unit, to pick up this wheel speed sensor. So that's what I'm working on right now. That's what this was. This thing's still probably very, very hot, so forgive me if I wince in pain like a wussy. Okay. One thing to note for you guys is you gotta put it on the toe link first, and then thread your boy, the hub. On. For whatever reason, you can't do it in a different order than that. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see all this. And I'll try and give you a better angle in a little bit, but this should work. I think I just test fitted it, so. I'll obviously need a smaller bolt. Will not need one this size. Boom. Okay, so I think as soon as I tighten this down, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that is gonna work. So that's what that ended up being. So once I tighten that down, I can shim it out to the spot where I need it, and then it should be good to go. So I'm excited. That went really well. So I'll do the same thing for the other side. All right, guys. My front wheel hubs are back. Not the hubs, but the steering knuckles. And they've been drilled out, and the hub is mounted, and the tone ring's there. And now we've got a little bracket to mount our speed sensors. And so this is just gonna work out great, because it'll set it up to be right where it needs to be. And he's my guy at RJS. He just made this thing like perfect. I mean, look at how close that is. He notched it so that the bracket fits down in there, and that it's super close to the tone ring. It's just fantastic. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take those little Allen screws out, and I'm gonna put some Loctite on them. Maybe I'll and then the next thing that I'm about to do is I'm gonna mount my yaw sensor in here in the center console where the handbrake used to be. And so I made up this little bracket with these holes. What I'll do real quick is I'll just assemble that so you can see it. So got these extra long M6 bolts. I started buying some M6 bolts because it seemed like everything was going to be M6 on this thing. The Viper uses metric bolts, and then the BMW uses metric bolts. So I'm very accustomed to using metric stuff. So I got these little spacers from MasterCar. They're about 2 inches long. Sorry, that was falling around, but yeah. So you want every other Mk60 video out there tells the installers to pay attention to the orientation of the yaw sensor as you're installing it. So the general, well, what everyone knows is the plug faces towards the front of the car, and these mounting ears, they are actually face up. So it looks like it would be face down, but actually this is how it's supposed to be. So I'll toss some washers on, some nuts. Probably should have gotten ready off camera so that y'all didn't have to watch me fiddle around. This will be a 10 mil, so I'll go grab a wrench and tighten these. And I got these 3 mounting holes already that you can see right here. Those are just where my handbrake mounted, so I've already located that. It was just a convenient, while it was already there, I might as well use it. Okay. Just let me just feel it in my hands so that I'm not over torquing and don't realize it. It's aluminum after all. I want to be kind of careful. Alright. So that thing's mounted, secure. And what I'll do is I'll put this in the car. See, I try my best to show y'all stuff. Alright, and then this. Ah, I did it upside down. Dadgummit, I gotta do this again. See, this is how you know I'm real. Because I screw things up. Okay. And if I'm not careful, I'm gonna forget which way is the right way. So I've got a lot of mosquitoes out here tonight. This is why you don't open your garage door, doofus. All these mosquitoes get me. Golly, there's several on me. Okay. Alright, so now I need to flip this over, and that is my mounting orientation. So put that through again, put that on, put that over top. Do the same thing over here. Yeah, because that hole in the car is not centered. So, or I mean the studs are not like perfectly centered in that little compartment. Go figure. Golly, I gotta shut my garage. These mosquitoes are like crazy. They're getting me. now it's mounted again, or mounted correctly. So again, orientation is that needs to face forward, and so now it's in there. Yes, I probably mounted those studs a little high, but, or I mean the bolts are a little long, but they're actually, I actually got them from something else. Let me just turn y'all so that I can finish this. All right. Hey guys, this will hopefully be the last video on the Mk60. I've got it installed at this point. The car works. It works fantastic. When you're driving, you can really feel all four corners working individually to keep the car straight and to brake it as quickly as possible. So I am extremely excited to get out to the track and test this. Unfortunately, I didn't get all this done in time for the track event that I was shooting for, but I have driven it on the street, and it was fantastic. I am just so happy with how it turned out, and I just can't wait to see what it's like on track. But I did want to go over a few things as I was editing videos for the install. I realized that some things didn't get taped, or the video was corrupt, or just I didn't emphasize something enough, so I wanted to go over a few things. So the first thing is I want to go over the wiring. Now there are plenty of other Mk60 videos out there where they cover wiring, and so I'm not going to try and do an in-depth. I bought a harness from Doug Wardell, a pre-made harness, and it was fantastic. Doug is a pleasure to deal with. I cannot recommend him enough. So I would highly recommend that you get a harness from him. It makes the wiring super simple. He gives you good instructions, and he's always available for support. He was super good about helping me throughout the whole process. So I bought a harness from him, so I just wanted to go over some of that since I didn't tape any of that install. It's just a big plug that comes in here, and then it's got labels for everything that you've got to wire up. So as you can see here, here's the front brake pressure sensor, the rear brake pressure sensor. So those go right here. These plug into your pressure sensors coming off the master cylinder. So the system needs inputs for how much brake signal it's receiving. So that he goes ahead and provides wiring for that, and that's for a plain Jane Mk60 install. Now there's an E1 system and an E5 system. I'm not going over those at all. I am just doing a plain Jane Mk60. There are plenty of videos out there that are going to cover those things, and you can watch the DIY wiring videos. I'm not going to do that. I just bought a harness from Doug, and it was fantastic. So he's got the main plug-in that comes into your computer. He's got the pressure sensors. Then he's got I think I've got it zip tied up out of the way, or actually it's hooked up to my tuner. This plug right here is for your diagnostic tool, and you may be able to see it right there. It's already hooked up, and so if you will need something like this, or you'll need to download the INPA software and use your computer. But it's basically an OBD. Sorry, you're probably not gonna be able to see this super well, but it's an OBD port, and you can tell it you need it in order to bleed your system, to bleed your brakes. You can use it to get live data. You can clear codes. So I would highly recommend this. This thing's fantastic. It's super easy to use, straightforward. Again, there are other videos out there about how to use it. I'm not going to go over that with you. Then he's got signals to go to your ABS warning light. This will come on if you've got a critical error, or probably any just normal errors, because you're going to have some error codes whenever you do this that are inherent just because they're not hooked up to a BMW system, but it will not illuminate from those. It'll only illuminate from a new or irregular issue. He's got wiring going to all sorts of places, and I mean that in a good way. I just mean it's hard to break it all down. Here's the yaw sensor hookup. You got your brake wheel speed sensors going to the rear. I've already got mine routed to the front. I'm trying to think of what else he has. One thing that has to do with the wiring that I've got to walk y'all through, that I did not cover in video because it was a very painful process, and that was more just a figuring it out, not so much a he didn't make it difficult. I just there was a learning curve with this, and that's with the brake wire signal. So, and when I say wire signal, I mean your brake lights only come on obviously when you depress the brake. So there, if you go in here and you come up underneath the brake pedal, you'll see up there that plug right there. Sorry, it's very hard to get up in here. That's got a pigtail coming to it of wiring. You can see where I've re-put some cloth tape over it. But there's a white wire in there that when you depress the brake and when it comes off of the brake, the brake signal, I can't think of the term for it, but your brake pedal switch, when it releases, it grounds it and sends a signal back to the brake lights. So what you have to do is you have to splice into that and send a wire over to the Mk60 unit so that the Mk60 unit knows to turn on, because that system is, I believe, normally open, but it needs to be grounded in order to operate, which you're obviously like, yeah, duh. But, or maybe it's backwards. I can't remember. You'll have to look this up. But you need to wire that signal to a relay so that it converts the signal correctly to a to the Mk60 unit. And you can see this is my relay right here that's going to the Mk60 unit. It's like 2 grounds, a signal going to the Mk60, and then the white signal wire coming from the brake pedal switch. So you need to do that. It's not just let me wire that one white wire all the way up to the Mk60 signal wire. It's not like that. You need a relay in order to convert the signal. And I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know that this is a very common issue when you do this install, is if you have to understand how that works. And so you have to send your brake signal from that brake pedal switch to the relay, which then goes to the the Mk60 unit. That was a painful part of the install, but it's doable. You have to you have to twist that brake pedal switch in order for it to come out. Then you'll unplug that gray pigtail on the right. And then what I did was I just used my multimeter to test the signals, and once I released the button, I could see that the white wire was the signal wire because I had 12 volts whenever I did that. So I'm sorry I didn't tape it. I hate it when people film YouTube videos that are incomplete. But that was just it was a very hard part of the install. So it was very hard to use a camera, and you have to. My feet are up here. I didn't even have a seat in here when I was doing this. I took the seat out to do this. My feet are up here and my head's way up in there, and it's still very difficult. So I apologize I didn't tape it, but that is a big part of the install, is understanding that. But I've done that piece for you, so you shouldn't have to go hunting for it. Now, I would still recommend you use your multimeter in case, I don't know, in case I'm describing it or remembering it poorly. But you should be able to just take what I told you, use that white wire, send the signal to your relay, and then over to your Mk60 unit. So that part you should not have to go and figure out. So hopefully that'll help you out, make it a little bit easier. So I've gone over the wiring, I've gone over the brake pedal switch wiring. Sensors for the rear. Okay, this was another thing. This was the entire reason that I did not get to try it at Barber. I had wheel speed signal readings. So when you're using your little Foxwell tuner, I'm sure it'll work for the input system as well on your computer, but you can get a live reading on here. When you turn your key on, this will turn on, and you don't run it in the car obviously all the time, but you do when you're testing for something. You can do live readings, so you can see what each wheel is reading. And I only had readings at the front two wheels, and I could not figure out why the rears weren't working. I kept trying to adjust the gap in between the tone ring and the speed sensor, and it didn't really fix it. So what I found out is these have to be oriented. So let me find something to pretend that it's a tone ring. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I have not cleaned up since any of my projects, so this place is a mess. Pretend this is the tone ring. This sensor needs to be oriented on top of it like this. I kept trying to point it like this because I thought they were all like that, but no, it needs to be oriented over top of it for you to get a reading. Now, these sensors are pretty large in my opinion. They're much larger than these sensors, which they're both BMW sensors, but BMW uses different sensors front to rear. And so you can see right here, this sensor is much shorter than this one. So it is my opinion that you cannot fit this sensor in here in the rear, because there's just no real estate. There's nowhere to mount it to in order to get this over your tone ring and not hit the half shaft. That's my experience. I don't see a way to do it. I'm sure there are plenty of you out there that are smarter than I can and you can figure it out, but I could not. So what I did was I ordered 2 more. So when I bought my kit, I had 2 sensors like this, and I had 2 sensors like this. And these are stock rear sensors for a BMW. Those are fronts. I just ordered 2 more rear sensors and put them on the rear, and it worked. So that's what I would recommend. I would recommend you get 4 of the BMW E46 M3 rear speed sensors, and there's a bunch of them. You can get them for $7, you can get them for $30. I paid the $30 to get the Bosch ones because for brakes, I really don't want to cheap out. I don't want to risk anything, so I would recommend you get the Bosch ones, because they say that the quality of these components is very important, and that's where I'm going to add this one little tidbit. Is they say to use OEM brake pressure senders. They say that that's very, very important, that the aftermarket ones are very prone to braking or to not sending an appropriate signal. So they say use OEM, and I believe those are, it's not ATEC, it's like ATE is the brand. ATE makes like most of the stuff on that system. So those are some of the lessons I learned from my mistakes. The small ones are very easy to mount and to install, so I would highly recommend you use those. Been over the sensors for the rear, programming with handheld, that's really straightforward. I showed you that. Okay, the last thing, one of the largest pieces of this install was the front spindles. I've got a 98 GTS, and they have different spindles than the later Gen 2s. So the later Gen 2s had ABS, so they had provisions drilled in the center of the spindle for the tone ring and assembly to route through so that it could spin with the wheels. Your early Gen 2s don't have those, but I can confirm that you can drill out and drill and bore out a hole in the center of your early Gen 2 spindles to mount a later Gen 2 hub to it in order to get your tone rings for the front. So that is doable. I've tracked it. Like I didn't get the ABS working for the last track event, but I've tracked the car since having those holes. It's not like a critical structural issue. The car ran just fine. I turned one of my faster laps at Barber, so it's not like you're taking away too much material or anything like that. You can drill and bore out holes in the center of your early Gen 2 spindles in order to make this work. So I can confirm that works. It's worked for me. Last thing I'll add is buying parts. You obviously need to buy a later Gen 2 hub that's got tone rings on it, because I don't know where to order tone rings individually. So I had to order hubs for the front from an 01 or 02 Viper, and then I ordered half shafts from a 01 or 02 Viper. So those are critical pieces that you have to buy so that you can get the tone rings. If you don't have tone rings, you don't have a way to do this. So you pretty much are gonna have to go to Don Scharf or some other supplier and buy half shafts and front hubs. That is everything I can think of as far as like components that I had to buy. Obviously, when you're buying the Mk60 system, you'll need to buy a yaw sensor from an E46. You'll need to buy the pump, computer, and valve body system. And if you're buying the Mk60 unit, not the E1 or the E5, it'll have some part numbers printed on here, and there's the 813, the 818, and the 817. Those are they all three do the same thing. They're all Mk60 units. They just have different programming capabilities. I think that the 813 can be flashed to have a motorsports tune. The 818 cannot, I believe. You'll have to check me. And the 817 already comes with the motorsports tune. I've actually got a motorsports tune. I've got the 817 unit. But if you get an 813 unit, you can go get that one flashed. I don't know who does those. I don't know how good they are, so don't quote me on that, but the 818 units will work just fine too. It's just not got a motorsports tune. So buy whatever works for you. Obviously, there are other ways to do the pressure sensor installs too. You don't have to pay for these little manifold units that they thread into. I thought it was worth it because it simplified this stuff greatly. But you can go and buy the fittings that they screw into, and you can run hard brake lines to them. That's something you can do. Trying to think of what else. There's something else. I know there is. Obviously you need brake line fittings. These valve body ports are all bubble flares. So you can see this is an M12, this is an M12, and those are M12 1.0, by the way. So don't go and get a different thread pitch. These are M10, M10. I think these are M12 as well. Where these AN ports are, I'm pretty sure those are M12s. So you'll need to be mindful of that is you'll need to be able to make bubble flares for the valve body, and then you'll need SAE flares everywhere else. So I went to Pegasus Racing and bought all my brake fittings. I bought plenty of 3/8-24 or whatever they are, like coupling nuts or whatever they're called, where you can join brake lines together. I'll show you. I think I go over this in another video, but just in case I didn't, these type of unions, you can see another one there. I'm trying to think of what else. You need those if you're gonna do flex lines, you need those -3 AN fittings that are M12 bubble ports. Pegasus has those. I made this little heat shielding type thing for the brake line right here. I didn't want that getting exposed to way too much heat and degrading. So hopefully that's helping. It's just got some heat shielding adhered to the other side of this little bracket that I just made off of the master cylinder. Trying to think of what else you need. Yaw sensor, pump, pressure sensors, tone rings. Only thing I'll add is if you do try and get a unit that's an E1 instead of a plain Jane Mk60, if you go with an E1, you don't have to use pressure sensors. They have internal, and you'll ask me how I know. I've got an extra unit. This is an E1 unit. This has internal pressure sensors. So you do not need external pressure sensors if you go with an E1 unit. So that's something you can look at. If you want to do it, you can get an E1 unit and you don't have to run exterior pressure sensors. So I think that's the only difference, I believe. Don't quote me on that, go do your own research, but I believe that's the only difference. So E1 units are desirable. You can get those if you want. I'm not selling this. I want a backup. I'd like to have something in case my pressure sensors go out at the track, then I can undo all my fittings and drop that one in, and then it'll be ready to go, because I believe this harness will still work even if those are unplugged if you're using an E1 system. So, yeah, you need to wire up a warning light as well so that you know if something is gone bad in your system. So I would recommend you do that. Obviously you don't need to do it like I did. I needed something when I was going to the track, and so we just cobbled that together real quick. But yeah, so that's the main install. Those are the main hiccups I had. You should be able to get your spindles drilled out if you've got an early gen or an early Gen 2 Viper. You need to use the rear speed sensors off of a M3 E46. It may not have to be an M3, it may be a 330 or whatever, but you need the rear sensors. You obviously need a pump, a yaw sensor, you need brake lines. You need to make 4 brake lines to each individual corner. You cannot just go back and connect in the rear. If you go and look underneath the rear of the car, let's see if I can show you. The stock braking system on a Gen 2 has a union joint right here where all the brake lines came, where there was one rear brake line coming in right here, and then it had one coming out to go to the right rear, and then one coming out to go to the left rear. You need to run 4 individual brake lines because it's a 4-channel system. The Mk60 has to be a 4-channel system so it can adjust each brake pressure individually. That's why you got 4 brake lines coming out of here. So you have to do that. Okay. Guys, I think that's everything. I'm sorry I don't have a driving video. I know that that's what everyone wants to see at the end of stuff like this. You want to go see a before and after. You want to see a 90 mile an hour or a 60 mile an hour braking to 0, but I didn't go out and film anything before the install. I'm not going to go unplug the system and flat spot my tires just to show you a before and after, but just trust me when I say it works phenomenal. It is awesome. There's a reason why everyone in other types of track days and motorsports and HPDs and racing, there's a reason why they install them. They're very, very good. I would highly, highly recommend it. The only thing I'll add is, I know a lot of you are like, well, hey, I want AC in my car. I don't have my car butchered up like you do. I haven't done any of this crap that makes my car uncomfortable. You can mount this somewhere else. You do not have to do what I did. You could mount that in the trunk of your car. Yeah, I know. I've just got zip ties holding my shock canisters. I know it looks dumb. I know it is dumb. I'll fix it. And I know I've got 2 giant holes there. I know. I used to have a ice tank in here for when my car was supercharged, and I would run fluid up to the ice cold fluid up to the front to keep it from heat soaking. So bear with me. I know it looks dumb. I know it is dumb. But you can come back here and mount your system. You could mount your pump back here and route lines all the way to the front, and you'd have short lines in the rear. You would need to tell Doug that, though, before you order your harness. You would need to tell him that, hey, I'm mounting my pump in the rear, so I'm going to need extra long harnesses for the the pressure sensors, and I would need an extra long piece for the front brake speed sensors, and you would need to make much longer brake lines from your master cylinder. So you would need to think through those things before you order parts. So just be mindful of that. But you can mount that back here. I really didn't want to do that. I had the space, so I did it up there. But you could do it back here. You may hear it. You may hear the pump going while you're driving. Now the Vipers are loud, so maybe you don't. But that's one reason why I didn't really want to mount mine in the rear, and I didn't want to make really, really long lines coming up front, and I didn't really want to have to deal with finding a way to get lines up in here. Only other thing I'll add, I've probably said that 4 times now, but I ended up mounting hard lines. At first I was gonna do flex lines all the way around because I've had plenty of people tell me that's okay. So you may hear all this stuff about brake line deflection from flexible lines, but I've talked to a bunch of race teams or racing suppliers, and they say the amount of deflection per the length of the lines you're using is absolutely immeasurable and not noticeable. Your lines would have, they told me your lines would have to be extremely long for deflection to actually be a real thing on flexible lines. Now, there's deflection in flexible lines, but the lines aren't long enough for you to have noticeable deflection, was the point that they made. I ended up making hard lines because I thought it would allow me more flexibility with what I was doing, because you can only have so much bend in flex lines as well. So, and you have to measure them exactly perfectly to not end up with, and I didn't measure these perfectly, so that's why some of them have to route around different things and they look kind of silly, and I had to make a U-turn somewhere. So I ended up making hard lines. You can do what you want. So you can make flex lines and get 3AN ports off of all of these if you want to, or you can try and make hard lines just to, it's just whatever works for you. So flex lines or hard lines, it's your call. I think that's the last thing I can really think of. So I hope you all enjoyed. I'm sorry the videos are so long, but I edited out as much as I could. I tried to exclude videos that were completely irrelevant or not crucial. I tried to eliminate my struggling with a lot of things. Now, I didn't do perfectly because I've got a newborn. I'm not trying to spend 20 hours editing 150 hours of footage. I don't know that I took that much, but I took a significant amount of footage as I was filming all this. And I'm not gonna put that much time into editing a video that 100 of you are gonna watch. So bear with me. If you're gonna install this on your system, you're probably gonna want the extra long videos anyway. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps you. It's an awesome system, and I highly recommend it if you're considering finding ways to go faster on your car at the track. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.